Hello everyone, it's me, Garrett of Oz, here with the likely last video of 2017. I know, sad. So we're gonna do, of course, a video. We'll talk a little bit about, the next book. As always, we'll talk do a little bit of a recap of the year. I apologize if there's a little extra background noise. I'm off work today. I took a personal day, just because I could. So I've got the dogs in here with me because I don't want them having too much fun. So if you hear a little extra background noise, it's partially because I have a dog that's chewing on a toy, which we much prefer her chewing on a toy than on, furniture. And because this room is oddly very warm right now, I've got a fan on, so I apologize now if you're one of those people that background noise bothers you. This may not be a good video for you. But if you're like me and you don't notice this stuff, good to go. Remy, stop licking the books. I have one dog that likes to lick old books. Stop that. Okay, so we're going to talk about Rinkitink and Oz. It's book 10. I read an edition with a dust jacket by Dick Martin. So this is a late 50s, early 60s edition. There's no color plate on the cover, it's just a plain cover. He redrew... I have to move a box, apparently. Quit licking boxes. I apologize. He redrew several of the covers in the 50s, early 60s before the white editions. So these are the last real runs in the original sort of binding, if you will, of the Oz books by Riley and Lee. After that came the white books, and then after that came nothing. So there we go with that. The book, it was published in 1916. Yes, 1916. Because last year was the 100th anniversary. I need more coffee. And I've got a lovely mug that a coworker made for me one time for my birthday. So that seems appropriate. So, the book was written in 1916, formally written. It was adapted from a short story that had actually been written in 1907, which, as many of you probably recall, is around the time of Ozma of Oz, which means there were some necessary changes that had to be made. But we'll get into that a little bit later. The book itself is actually, I think, one of Baum's strongest. I had not read this one. As a kid, it didn't really appeal to me. As an adult, at first, when I found out the backstory of the book, I went, well, I don't want to read that. That sounds dumb. I hadn't actually read it. And then I told people it was my least favorite, even though I hadn't actually read it, because that's actually kind of the first one, which is not great to say, I'm sure. But I actually found this a complete and total delight. There were did have a few issues through the book, especially the last act. But overall, it's a very, very sharp, tight story. The bulk of the story is set on the Nonestic Ocean. And I wish I had a really good map of Oz that I could show you whereabouts that is, but I just don't. But the Nonestic Ocean is near the land of Ebb and the Gnome King's domain. And it starts out on the island of Pinnegree. We later move to the Isles of, Regos and Corregos. And then finally to the Gnome King's domain, and then, of course, Oz. This is the second book as well that was that was sort of started, well, we'll get to that. The Isle of Pinnegree, is a pearl harvesting country. They're fairly wealthy because they trade pearls to the nearby island of Gilgad. The names are not the easiest for me to remember, and I openly admit that. Gilgad, which is where King Rinkitink lives. Now, the Isle of Gilgad, they trade their pearls there, they get wealth. Everyone is happy. There was a mysterious incident many years before where King Kitikut had to drive away the evil, mean warriors from Regos and Koragos. But no one really quite knows how he did it, because they sent a huge army, and he did it single-handedly. Well, come to find out, he has 3 magic pearls. A blue pearl, which provides him great strength, a pink pearl, which provides him great protection, as in nothing can harm him, and a white pearl that will give him the perfect, appropriate advice for any situation. Fabulous! So, all is well, and Kitikut and his wife Gary, or maybe Guri, but I went with Gary, have a son named Prince Inga. Which, I guess at some point Inga was a male's name, but I immediately think Inga Swenson. But that's neither here nor there. All is well until one day, but the king feared that the warriors would return. Which, of course, they do. And through a series of misfortunate events, the king is not able to retrieve his pearls in time, and everyone is enslaved. Except for Inga. Well, and 2 other characters. Now, before the enslaving began, King Rinkitink escaped his country because he wanted to see the world. King Rinkitink is a big, fat, singing man. That's really the most succinct description of him possible. He's more than a little ridiculous. I actually found his singing kind of tedious. I actually skipped over a lot of those verses just because I wanted more story. I didn't want more singing. Which is rare for me, given how much I do love the musical theater. Lay down. So, he's there, as well as his goat that he rides, because he's too fat to walk. And his goat's name is Bill. And he talks. And he's very grumpy. And he's hilarious. They perfectly juxtapose each other. They are a great duo, minus the singing. So they also get left behind. So fortunately, Prince Inga is able to retrieve the pearls, and they set off to rescue the family. There's, of course, a series of mishaps. He temporarily loses the pearls. The king and queen don't want to give up. King Goss and Queen Kor don't want to give up Inga's parents, so they run off to the Gnome Kingdom. So after Inga frees his people and sends them back to Penegri, he sets off to the Gnome Kingdom, which is now ruled, as we should remember from TikTok of Oz, by Calico. Now, Calico is a much nicer, at least so far, ruler than Ruggedo was, or Roquat, depending on which name you want to give him. Now, Calico, however, does sort of have a mean streak. He does agree with the Queen Kor and King Goss to keep Inga's parents in the Gnome King's dominion so that Inga cannot rescue them. So when Inga, Rinkitink, and Bill arrive, of course, he's like, no, you can't have them. And he's like, I actually kind of like you guys, but I already promised these people this, so I kind of have to be mean to you, but I really don't want to be mean to you. So if you won't oppose me, I won't be mean to you, but if you're gonna oppose me, then I'm gonna have to be mean. And it's kind of a hilarious exchange. And, of course, they oppose him, so of course he has to do some mean things. But he still feeds them well, he gives them chambers. You know, he doesn't really intend true harm. And then we get to the third act. Much like in the previous book, the Book of Records, and now in this one, the Magic Picture become involved. Because Dorothy gets curious about this whole thing and watches the proceedings. And when Inga and his company march into the Gnome King's dominion, she realizes that Oz needs to intervene, which is the one thing that Calico does not want. And he makes it very clear that if any of these people are involved in Oz, he cannot help them because the Ozians are way too powerful, and he doesn't want to go there. Of course, he still has to go there because it wouldn't be an Oz book. So Ozma says, sure, go on ahead, take a basket of eggs, because we learn in this book, eggs make gnomes mortal. So, and to take the wizard with him, or with her, because, you know, safety in numbers. So they travel to the Gnome King's dominion once again, and Dorothy essentially marches in and just goes, hey, I got a basket of eggs, you're gonna let these people go. And Calico's like, okay, fine by me, take them, have fun. Queen Cor and King Goss are lost at sea, literally dead, so they're no longer a problem. And everyone is rescued and goes back to Oz for a banquet. But we're not without one more big surprise. Bill is actually not a goat, but a prince who has been enchanted. That's right, because, you know, that's how these things roll. And really, Bill is Prince Bobo of Boboland. Glinda is, of course, able to break the enchantment, but even though he could go back to his own country, he decides, since he and Rinkitink have been together for so long, and they're such good pals, he's just gonna stick around with Rinkitink. Subsequently, after the big banquet, everyone returns to their respective homes and lives happily ever after. The end. Very quick resolution. Quite literally, Dorothy doesn't show up until page 275 of a 314-page book. Literally, that's how much of the book Dorothy's in. And we're about to get to that. The illustrations are actually, I think, some of Neil's best. The figure work is very lovely. This is a minor character named Zella who temporarily has control of the pearls. That's a whole mini subplot that doesn't really matter all that much. At least to me it didn't. It's got beautiful chapter headings. And there's Rinkitink himself. Not quite as large as he is in some photos. One of Neil's favorite tropes, child leaning over book with candle. Or person leaning over book. Glinda does it. Mombi does it. It shows up in Patchwork Girl. It shows up in his Treasure Island. It shows up a lot. Lovely, sassy Dorothy. Like, hi y'all, I got some eggs. At least that's how I interpret that picture. The illustrations are terrific throughout. We do get one more moment of racist Neil with a reappearance of the Tottenhots. What can you do? Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. But overall, the illustrations are absolutely charming. And really, Dick Martin's cover illustration does capture Rinkitink's character very well. It captures your three main characters beautifully. The book, like I said, it was first written in 1907 as a short story called King Rinkitink. It was not finished. Or, if it was, we don't know what the original ending was. Have no clue. Initially, Baum wanted to go to an every other year with the Oz books. He was kind of tired of writing Oz, but it was a moneymaker. And so Riley and Lee were willing to concede that point. And so initially, 1916 was not going to have an Oz book. Instead, it was going to have a new manuscript called Father Goose's Party. And it was going to be a presentation of various Baum characters with an appropriate nursery rhyme accompanying each and interspersed with the well-known characters of Mother Goose and the best-known fairy tales, the idea being to establish the Baum characters with the older classics of the nursery. They also felt that doing 2 Baum books in a year wouldn't pay, so they were going to go ahead with Father Goose's Party to release in midsummer. Unfortunately, during the summer of 1916, the sinking of the Arabic happened, and the war began. Because of this, you know, as is always the case when there's a war, people quit spending for a brief period of time. So Riley and Lee pushed for, said, we need an Oz book because that's going to sell. So very quickly, he took his short story, slapped Dorothy in at the end, and called it a new book. And there you go. That's Rinkitink and Oz. Subsequently, I have some problems with the ending. That was really where the book for me fell apart. There was some middle adventure that I really didn't care for either, but it was minor. The book is so strong, and I would love to know just exactly what Baum had originally planned. There's speculation that it probably would have involved, since Ozma of Oz got written, obviously there was the rewrite for who was in charge. Some people believe that probably the ornament room came into play there. And then when he used it in Ozma of Oz, of course, that meant he couldn't use it here. So instead you get 3 caverns that he has to escape through, or that Inga has to escape from, as well as a whole weird thing with flying knives at King Rinkitink. So it definitely becomes very forced. The ending just doesn't feel... It's like you're going, and then all of a sudden, plop. I do like I said, I do actually like that illustration of Dorothy. I like that we get a little bit of more on the eggs and why eggs are poison to gnomes. Makes much more sense. But in some ways, I truly regret that it became an Oz book, because I think this would have been one of Baum's strongest books. Certainly as strong as Wizard or Ozma or Patchwork Girl. And might have even become a classic in its own right. And of course, knowing Baum's wonderful ability to pull his characters from one book series into Oz, certainly the characters could have been brought to Oz in a later book. But what can you do? While I didn't particularly care for the verses, they are very well written. Baum was very good with verse work. The characters are lively. These are very, very well-rounded characters. But it suffers less so than Scarecrow of Oz did, from the sudden inclusion of Oz characters. Where TikTok suffered from its theatrical roots and its theatrical moments, Scarecrow suffered because it wasn't as interesting until it got to Oz. This one suffers because once it gets to Oz, it's no longer interesting. So we've had 3 books in a row where really to a degree, the Oz elements have almost detracted. I guess no, that's not true, because Scarecrow of Oz really does get better once they get to Oz. And that really should have been the entire book, in my opinion, but whatever. But Rinkitink is really quite enjoyable, and I know it gets a lot of crap because it's not really an Oz book, but it is an Oz book. But it's really a terrific book, and I really cannot recommend it enough. And it's actually one that, if with a little bit of tightening, could actually be made into a movie today and probably be fairly successful. If you took out the Oz element, if you rewrote the end. Which, the Oziana 2017, which I need to try and get a hold of, does feature, the Oz Club had a contest for people to write a new ending for it. And I'm very curious to see what people came up with. That's good. Love coffee. So there we go. So that is, Rinkitink and Oz, kind of in a nutshell. Before we get on to the next book, I want to talk a little bit about 2017. First off, I want to thank every single one of you who came along on this journey with me so far. We're 11 books in, 12 if you want to count Little Wizard. We've made it so far. It's been a fun journey, occasionally a slightly annoying journey, but a fun journey. We will definitely be continuing. I don't make any plans of stopping, especially because my favorite from my childhood, and I'm curious to see if it'll still be my favorite, is coming up next. I had a personal goal this year of doing 12 books, so we should technically have ended with Tin Woodman of Oz. That didn't happen. However, if we're going to count Wizard, that's still 11 books out of 12. So really, technically, if you count Wizard and it was just 1 month, Little Wizard and it was just the 1 month, then I should have ended with Lost Princess, but I didn't. But I've really enjoyed this journey that I've been taking, and I want to thank every one of you who's come along on this journey with me, because it has not necessarily been an easy journey, and I recognize that. I do have plans. I know several of you did want to see the collection. I do have plans to sort of go into that a little bit, but that's going to have to wait for next year, because I got to do some cleaning first. My shelf has gotten really, or shelves, I should say. So, I guess the next big thing is, the next book up is Lost Princess of Oz. And I've got probably more, with the exception of Wizard, I think I have more editions of Lost Princess than any other. No, I take it back. Land of Oz probably does beat it. No, I think okay, I lied. But Lost Princess is one of my absolute favorites. And I think I'm actually going to, even though I got a lovely edition from my good friend Sarah as a wedding present, absolutely stunning edition, later edition, it's a post-35, I think I may actually go ahead and use the Roycroft cover, because I don't have many opportunities to read a Roycroft cover coming, because I have Tin Woodman, but the Tin Woodman was illustrated by Dale Ulray. And while I do love her illustrations, I have a Tin Woodman with color plates, so I'm going to read that one. So this is going to be my only chance to do a Roycroft cover. So we're going to go with that one. But Lost Princess of Oz is a mystery novel. And I'm super excited. Ozma goes missing. And there's a frogman. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, there's also a land of teddy bears. And I love teddy bears. I do. Yes, there's a lavender and a pink bear. I love bears. So I'm super excited to read Lost Princess. There is a minimal chance that I may get this one read, and another video before the end of the year. I don't hold much faith in that, because I know myself, and I know I have the best intentions, and I don't always make it. I'm super excited. So, yes. So, Lost Princess of Oz is next. I'm super excited for that. Next year, we've got Lost Princess, which I've read, Tin Woodman, which I've read, Magic of Oz, which I've read. Glinda of Oz is the last of the Baum books. I have not read it. And then we get to start Ruth Plumley Thompson, who I have never read. So that should be interesting. Yeah. Let's see. So that's kind of it for me for this time. I hope every single one of you out there had a good 2017. I hope that 2018 is even better. I will get back to my blog, I promise. For those of you who celebrate, Happy Christmas. For those of you who don't celebrate Christmas but celebrate Hanukkah, Happy Hanukkah. If you celebrate Kwanzaa, Happy Kwanzaa, or Merry Yule, or Happy Festivus for the rest of us. I hope anyone who's hoping for Aussie things gets them. I know I'm getting something, but I don't know what. And I'm sure there will be some Christmas money spent on books. And there we go. So, anyhow, I will see you all next time with Lost Princess of Oz.